All right, so I'm just going to start while they get my slides. That I'm going to talk about, at a higher level, about interdisciplinary pedagogy. And in my title, I say the science and the arts. And I use these purposely vague terms as it'll be revealed or manifest itself as I go through my talk. But I just want to say, for me personally, I feel that related concepts from neuroscience and to neuroscience and architecture can be found across the arts and across the sciences. And let's see if I can get this going. Okay. So today we've heard a lot of different approaches to integrating these disciplines. And so we can look at neuroscience from an architecture perspective. We can look at architecture from a neuroscience perspective, and certainly there's been many examples from today where people have taken those approaches. KLEIN described these types of approaches as multidisciplinarity, which is the idea that we take the knowledge from other disciplines and apply it to a question of interest within our own discipline. And the outcome of these relationships is only affecting one of those disciplines, the discipline that's asking the question. And so what I'm going to talk about is my pedagogical approach, which KLEIN refers to as interdisciplinarity. And the idea is that we want to cultivate interdisciplinary thinking. And what this requires is a shift of intellectual boundaries. We have to go beyond the box of neuroscience. We have to go beyond the box of architecture in order to have meaningful progress in this hopefully burgeoning field. And so what is this idea of interdisciplinarity? KLEIN described it as using the methods and knowledge from different disciplines and jointly applying them to a shared question or topic. And the key part of this is the idea that the gains for each discipline is going to be greater than if they have pursued that same question on their own. And of course, I mean, this is much easier said than done. It's quite a difficult proposition to actually make this work within academia because what Snow refers to as this two-culture conflict is that the science and the arts have traditionally had this relationship that has been of opposition rather than cooperation, where the sciences kind of insist on ideas of objectivity, of quantification, of control, and the arts have virtues that kind of promote the ideas of subjectivity, intuition, and narration. But these two kind of areas also have shared values, namely the search for truth. And so we need to exploit these similarities while at the same time using differences as advantages. And so I think a useful way to think about it again is KLEIN and NEWELL's definition of interdisciplinary study. Just going to keep beating this down, is the idea that it's a process of answering a question, solving a problem, or addressing a topic that is too broad or complex to be dealt with adequately by a single discipline or profession. And what this definition inherently has is this idea that we can bring unity to disparate fields through a common question. And so at the heart of interdisciplinarity is the balance of depth, breadth, and synthesis. And so depth refers to taking the relevant professional, disciplinary knowledge that's essential or relevant to a task. Breadth, talking about kind of a range of information coming from multiple perspectives. And then finally, synthesis, integrating all of this knowledge into what I'm referring to loosely as a Gestalt perspective in the way that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. And so what this is going to require is a shift in pedagogy. We have to move from this traditional static idea of pedagogy in the academy, the idea of control, of mastery, of expertise, and move to something that's more dynamic or active, to dialogue, to process, to negotiation, something that's living and breathing. It's constantly changing. And I would assert that that type of move is really uncomfortable for many people, including myself. But that's what I work towards. And there are many ways that we can kind of integrate these ideas of interdisciplinary studies into curriculum. And here's a long list that KLEIN and NEWELL had proposed. But what we can see from this list is that they all center on balancing depth, breadth, and synthesis. And that's, I think, something that is worthy of striving towards. And so I'm just going to give a quick example of how I integrate interdisciplinary study in one of my courses that I teach. I teach a course at the University of Utah called Explorations Through Psychology and the Arts. And I want to say, don't get hung up on the idea of the word psychology. It's only because if any of you are academics, you understand that there's a lot of bureaucracy in terms of where you're housed, and there's words that need to be used in relation to that. But this class, it does look across the sciences. So what we look at are theoretical and experimental papers from all of the sciences. So we certainly look at neuroscience. We look at the frameworks that Ramachandran and Zeki have proposed in terms of neurosthetics, for example. We also look at theoretical and historical papers from the arts, certainly from architecture, looking at Kevin Lynch, or from Margaret, who we'll hear from tomorrow. And so by looking at these theoretical papers from both sides of the aisle, we then ask the students to make the intellectual connections, to do that synthesis of these kind of disparate fields. Freudian slip, perhaps. I don't know. Okay, and so my course is approached around organizing around a common topic, and that topic is probably as broad as you can get. Both are attempting to address the human condition. And so this is implemented through, or I think this illustrates the idea of how interdisciplinary study is creative and constructed rather than formulaic or imitative. And what I borrow from is this idea of the flipped classroom. This is a really big topic within the Chronicle of Higher Education right now. And I think the important part of the flipped classroom that I am pulling from is that its emphasis is on the learning process. And so we can then kind of harness educational technology and experiential learning in order to meet our learning objectives. And so this is an active, student-centered type learning. It's problem-based, where most notably one of the big shifts in the flipped classroom is the idea that we go from what's called the sage on the stage. So this kind of setup where I'm lecturing to a group of people, to what's called the guide on the side, where the students are engaged in activities and the role of the professor is to structure those activities or push those outcomes forward. And so in this type of classroom, you have the students who are the active participants in learning. And so these are kind of course objectives for my class, but I think the underlying goal is that they're trying to foster interdisciplinary thinking. And this is achieved through different activities. And since I'm running out of time, I'll just say that we have activities where the student becomes the teacher. And so half the students read half the readings, half the students read the other readings, and then they come together and they have to teach each other the material. We also have students in groups are teaching material to the rest of the class. And we also have students as researchers where they take the methods of the arts and they take the methods of the sciences and they produce two products. One that's traditionally considered from the arts, so some sort of art project of some sort, and they do some sort of research paper, both on the same topic, so they can understand how each of those areas would approach the same question. And I'll end there, but just want to thank the University of Utah Graduate School who gave me the funding to develop this course, and Matt Cribbett, who was a colleague that helped me in developing this course at the university and my research group there.